Colin put out his top 12 quarterbacks in the NFL. So he has Mahomes 1, Allen 2, Burrow 3, Lamar 4. Okay, that's fine. Matt Stafford 5, Justin Herbert 6. I think that top 6 is okay. I would have CJ Stroud in it, and we'll go into that here in a second, but I'm okay with that top 6. This is where I think it gets really weird. Trevor Lawrence 7. He stinks. Jared Goff at 8, who I like. Too short Kyler Murray and plays too many video games 9. Aaron Rodgers at 10. And then he has CJ Stroud at 11 and Dak at 12. My biggest issue is
Trevor Lawrence. Get out of here.
Trevor Lawrence, Kyler, and Goff. CJ to me is so much. He's very clearly better than those 3 guys.
I would definitively take Stroud over everyone on this list where they're at March 5th, 2024, except for Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, and I guess I got to say that Lamar Jackson, I take over CJ Stroud, but I don't feel great about it.
I don't think you have to, because Lamar and Josh Allen, they are really special quarterbacks in the regular season, but they're playoff failures. CJ, yes, is 1-1 in the playoffs.
I don't think it's always been Allen's fault. So honestly, to go back to where I was when I was getting back and forth with DJ, I would take Stroud over Lamar Jackson. I understand why some people might push back on that and probably would call me biased for saying that, but I do trust Stroud more as a thrower of the football. And Jackson had that awful interception down the middle of the field against the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game, among other decisions that weren't great.
Yeah, but that's so the list is fine with the quarterbacks that are on it. I'm okay with the order as my issue. What about Justin Herbert? Where are you him versus CJ? Because Justin Herbert is a super talented quarterback, but the Chargers have had very little success with him there. They had the playoff game, I guess, last year at this point where they had the massive lead over Jacksonville, and then they blew it in the second half, and he was not good. But would you have CJ far ahead of Justin Herbert, or do you think they're pretty similar?
Yeah, I think he's far ahead. Justin Herbert is able to do extremely flashy things on the field, and I think that's what pulls a lot of national media to beat the drums for him and say, oh man, he's one of the top guys, but he doesn't do it consistently enough, and he seems to get more of a free pass than, say, a Dak Prescott, sort of like Trevor Lawrence. He and Lawrence are in the same conversation because there's just not a lot of attention that's focused on the Chargers or the Jaguars. And I think that Herbert, while he does do some really incredible things, I do not think he is as consistent as he needs to be.
The Emmanuel Acho take where Justin Herbert is a social media quarterback is a fair one. The social media highlights for Herbert are incredible. Kind of like Kyler Murray and at times Trevor Lawrence, where when you just see what they do on Twitter, they look like very, very special quarterbacks. When you watch a full game, that's where you have the flaws. For me, when I don't hate this list, but I have CJ Stroud as the 4th best quarterback in the NFL. That's where I have him right now. It is Patrick Mahomes 1, Joe Burrow 2, Josh Allen 3, CJ Stroud 4. Those are my top 4 quarterbacks in the NFL. Lamar Jackson, I get it, 2 MVPs. His numbers this year compared to most quarterbacks in the NFL were not that special. They were not MVP caliber numbers, really, when he's talking about throwing the football. And I can't ignore, even though, yes, they beat the Texans in the playoffs, I cannot ignore his failures in the playoffs. They're a joke. He is not a winner in the playoffs when it matters most, so I would have CJ in front of him. And I have no problem saying that.
Yeah.
Texter 8532, would either of you take Jordan Love over Stroud today? No.
No, I don't get the Jordan Love hype that came on at the end of the year.
They won a bunch of games.
I mean, they played well on Thanksgiving. And it wasn't his fault that I guess they lost in the playoffs, but I mean, I don't know.
I mean, that interception at the end of the game was pretty bad.
Yeah.
It was pretty just like over the middle, right to another guy. It was not good.
Not good.
It was all about the touchdown to interception ratio. I think that's what a lot of people focus in on. That to me is like one of those stats that I think everyone can kind of they see it on Twitter or they see it on ESPN, and they're like, oh, they've won 5 straight games, and he's thrown 12 touchdowns and 1 pick. And without really watching Jordan Love play, they just kind of jump on that bandwagon. They're like, oh, yeah, this is where, this is why he's on this level as the other guys. I don't buy it.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't buy it at all. Where do you have CJ Stroud ranked?
Yeah, I'd put him at 5.
5?
4 or 5, right? It really depends on how I'm feeling on a current day about like what Lamar Jackson did in the second half in particular against the Texans in the divisional round versus the Lamar Jackson that we saw in the AFC Championship game. And Jackson's playoff track record, as you said, not great. Stroud, again, it's only been 2 games. The first game, he looked great against one of the best defenses in the NFL. The second game, he looked like he was just running for his life the whole time. I don't know what he really could have done in that game. With Tank Dell, are things different? I don't know. But, yeah, I think Stroud's got to be in that top 5 conversation. And I know we're going to sound biased on it, but you have to make a strong case for guys like Matthew Stafford, who is up there in age, Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence, and then Jared Goff, Kyler Murray, Aaron Rodgers off an Achilles, age 40, Dak Prescott, who also has his own playoff issues. Like, good luck.
Yeah. I mean, and the only other thing for me with this, Paul, is that even if we disagree with the take, the fact that CJ Stroud, after his rookie year, is even in this conversation is extremely impressive. How often do you see rookie quarterbacks enter these conversations even into the top 10? It rarely ever happens. I mean, Mahomes, after his first full year starting, and won a Super Bowl, it was very clear he was a top 5 quarterback in the NFL in that moment. So what CJ did is very, very impressive. Worst take I've seen here on the text line since the show started, Paul.
What?
9117, Dak is top 3. What are we doing here? What football games do
Trolling?
you watch, 9117?
He's trolling.
I don't know.
Don't all takes matter?
I mean, do all takes matter?
I think all takes matter. I think you're gatekeeping takes. That's the popular word these days.
Everyone can have a take.
You're gatekeeping.
Everyone's allowed to have takes.
Yeah, but you're saying he has to have the same take as me.
No,
sounds like Joe Brandon to me.
I'm just saying it's a bad take. It's a very, very bad take. Pro Football Focus did their top 101 players in the NFL. I don't get why you do that, but okay. Is there a reason why you had to have your 101st player in there?
I want to set yourself out. Probably
stand out for the algorithm.
Slightly different from the top 100 list.
Yeah, so when people look for the top 100 players in the NFL, they can't find you. But they put out their list. Now it's not totally done yet. We're still waiting through 40 through number 1. And there's a handful of Texans on this list. Some surprising. The most surprising was CJ Stroud, though. Not that he's on the list. Where he's at, on the list.
He's barely on the list.
List of 101, and he's 100th. Now, so far, through 101 through 60 or 40, they have 2 quarterbacks.
Right.
It's CJ at 100. Oh no, Jordan Love's on here. Jordan Love at 89. Jared Goff at 83. But the real issue is Tua. Tua is at 44. They think Tua Tagovailoa is the 44th best player in the NFL, and CJ Stroud is the 100th. Whoever wrote this, you are dummy. You're a dummy.
But it's Pro Football Focus. It's based in data.
It can't be. You can't base anything on data.
That's what Pro Football Focus does, though.
And have CJ Stroud behind those quarterbacks.
Here's the complete list of quarterbacks. At 4 on this list, Patrick Mahomes. 7 on this list, Lamar Jackson. Continuing to go up. 14, Dak Prescott. 16, Josh Allen. Further through this list, as far as quarterbacks, were ranked ahead of not just CJ Stroud, but also for whatever reason, Tua Tagovailoa. 32, Brock Purdy, going further up, and that's where you get to Tua Tagovailoa. So look, it's based off of the grades that Pro Football Focus puts together, and these grades are entirely subjective because these grades are made by individual evaluators who are using their own independent evaluations to put specific numbers in for a play-to-play basis. I'm not going to act like the people at Pro Football Focus don't do their job. What I will say is you got to take everything that they put out there with a grain of salt. It's a nice think they have to measure things, but there are certain anomalies that jump out, and you're like, why should I take this as seriously as some take it? And this is it.
Yeah, it's one of those things where we talked about where he's at as a quarterback. Now, some of the performances that they highlighted on this list, Nico Collins was in the top 40 performances this year. Blake Cashman was in the top 100. Derek Stingley Jr., Laramie Tunsil. So the Texans have a nice collection of players that, even if these are one-game moments that they're referencing on this list, because I guess that's what it really is they're focusing on these individual games and accolades, because it clearly is not an all-season list, as I clearly didn't read it before the show started, because when I had to hit Control F and type in Justin Jefferson's name and he didn't appear on the list, I was really confused.
You don't need to show us what's underneath your kimono, Jeff.
I was so confused when I tried. I was like, see it. I was just like reading this and I was like, where is Justin Jefferson? But the Texans had so many individual performances this year that were very good. It's where I don't take Pro Football Focus at its end-all be-all. Now, this coming week, is where I do value Pro Football Focus, because anyone in this city that is going to act like every single free agent name that is connected to the Texans that they have some kind of hot take on or deep wealth of knowledge on is lying to you. I like Pro Football Focus from that standpoint of we're in free agency. Okay, this defensive tackle they're looking at from Jacksonville. I can't even say his last name, Paul. I don't even know who this guy is. And they play in the division. Where is it at here? But I can't find it. But like I can't find it. My brain is.
I don't know how to use Control F.
I don't know.
I can't read.
I can't read.
The Pro Football Focus.
That's how we feel.
Bad.
But Pro Football Focus is good for free agency. It's good to see a baseline of how this player has performed the previous year. How this player, when you're not watching, the Cincinnati Bengals every single game.
I specifically point to, I'm too lazy to watch defensive line play, offensive line play. So, you know what? If they grade those guys, great. Because I don't really want to watch it, just to be perfectly honest. Now, I would also, once again, argue that you don't always know the assignments that these players have. So how accurate can these grades be? Some of these people that work at Pro Football Focus, I think we all think of them as nerds. No, they're generally people with a football background that do understand this stuff. But at the same time, do they know what's called on a play-to-play basis? They would have to call the coaches and have the coaches share that with them. And how many coaches are willing to share that kind of information with them to say, oh, no, this person was supposed to do X, Y, and Z? There's so much time that would take on a weekly basis.
It would be impossible.
Yeah, if you're one of those coaches, why the F would you want to do that? F that.
No, I don't. And the player was Foley Fatukasi.
Oh, God.
Does that sound right?
I don't know.
Fatukasi. I think I got it pretty right.
Suppose we can ask. What do you think, Sean?
I feel like Sean's going to correct me here.
No, well, you asked if it sounded right, and I would just say the way you pronounced it did not sound right.
Right, you weren't confident enough.
Yeah.
Fatukasi.
Oh,
wow.
Wow, this guy knows ball.
You speak another language?
Yeah, I guess so. I speak another language now. I feel like I do know ball.
I speak ball, yeah.
It is funny that with the lists that are going to come out, the one that I think it's going to be funny, but will be the most upsetting to Texans fans or very exciting is the NFL Top 100 every year.
Oh, yeah, that list.
Because that one's voted on by the players.
Yeah, but they don't put much effort into it. It's one of those things where like they hand it to them, I think generally at the end of a long day of practice. And
I think that's why CJ is going to be high on the list.
You know what? Fair point. You're probably right on that front.